So far, all the equations that we've been solving have been called one-step equations because it only took one step to solve them. Today we want to start looking at two-step equations. This is an example of a two-step equation. 2x minus 4 is equal to 10. And I solved each of these equations in two different ways, but only one of them is right. In the first example, when I have 2x minus 4 is equal to 10, the first thing I did was to divide each side by 2. I know this 2x is 2 times x, so dividing by 2 should get that to cancel. Left with x minus 4, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now I see that minus 4, I want to get rid of that, so the inverse of minus 4 is plus 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and I get x equals 9. However, if I did it the other way, when I started off with 2x minus 4 is equal to 10, what if I added 4 first? Minus 4 plus 4 cancels. 2x is equal to 14, and then I divide by 2. Then those 2's cancel, and I get x is equal to 7. Which way is right? In both examples, I did the same two operations. I divided by 2, and I added 4. The order was the only thing that was different. Now, which one is right? We still haven't figured that out yet. The way to check if something is right is we would take our solution and plug it back in. So when I start with this x is equal to 9, I would take that and plug it into 2x minus 4 is equal to 10. And see if it's true. 2 times 9 is 18. And 18 minus 4 is 14. 14 is not equal to 10, so this one is not right. If we checked on the x is equal to 7, we do the same thing, plug that in. 2 times 7 minus 4 is equal to 10. Well, 2 times 7 is 14. And 14 minus 4 is 10. And so that means that this one is the solution. So which way yielded the correct solution? When solving an equation, which one should come first? Multiplying and dividing, or adding and subtracting? To help me out with this, I think about the order of operations. Remember, the order of operation was parentheses first, then exponents, then multiply, divide, and add and subtract. And it said this was the direction we went in when we were trying to simplify an expression. We're not dealing with expressions. We're not trying to simplify anything. What we're trying to do is to solve equations. So we're trying to undo everything that was in the expression. So what that means is we have to work in the opposite direction. When we're trying to solve equations, we have to take care of adding and subtracting first, then deal with the multiplying and dividing. There's a great analogy that I like. When you put your shoes on in the morning, the first thing you do is put your socks on, and then after that, you put your shoes on. When we're trying to undo that, trying to take everything off at night, do we take our socks off first? No, we have to take the shoes off first before we can get to the socks. And that's the same idea that's happening here. When we're trying to simplify an expression, we have to hit the multiplying and dividing before adding and subtracting. But solving an equation is undoing all of that, so we have to get rid of the adding and subtracting first, and then deal with the multiplying and dividing. The next 6 examples are the same examples that are on the front of your worksheet. So we'll start with 6x plus 3 is equal to 27. First of all, we want to recognize that there are 2 operations happening. We have this 6 times x and plus 3. Which one do we deal with first? Always deal with the adding and subtracting first. So that means I'm going to deal with this plus 3. The inverse of adding 3 is subtracting 3. So I'll subtract 3 from both sides. After these 3 cancels, I'm left with 6x on the left side, and 27 minus 3 is 24 on the right side. We still have one more operation to go. So we recognize that 6x is multiplying by x, and how we undo multiplication is with its inverse, dividing. So I'll divide by 6 on both sides. Left with x over here, and 24 divided by 6 is 4. If you want, you can check your answer real quick by doing 6 times 4 plus 3 and seeing if it equals 27. 6 times 4 is 24. 24 plus 3 is 27, so we are correct. Our solution is x equals 4. In the next problem, we have 3n plus 15 is equal to 9. So first, we recognize that 3n is multiplying, and we are adding 15. Which one should we take care of first, the multiplying or adding? Always take care of the adding or subtracting first. Since this is plus 15, to get rid of it, we're going to use its inverse minus 15 and subtract 15 on both sides. When the 15s cancel on the left, we're left with 3n. And on the right, we have 9 minus 15, which is negative 6. Our next step, we realize that 3n is 3 times n. So we're going to undo multiplication by using division. Divide by 3. Left with n on the left side. And negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Do not forget about this negative. I noticed that on the test, a lot of people would have just called this 6 divided by 3 equals 2. Do not ignore the negative. That's negative 6 divided by 3. One more, 4d minus 8 is equal to negative 34. We recognize that this is 4 times d, and now instead of adding, we are subtracting. Always deal with the adding and subtracting first. Since this says minus 8, we're going to undo that with a plus 8, so we add 8 to both sides. We're left with 4d is equal to negative 26. Then we recognize that's 4 times d, so we'll use division to get rid of that 4. And negative 26 divided by 4 is negative 6.5. For the last 3 problems, they'll have division in it. This one starts off with w divided by 4 minus 20 is equal to 8. So first we have division, and then we have subtraction. Always deal with adding and subtracting first. So to get rid of minus 20, we're going to add 20. Negative 20 plus 20 is 0. We'll add 20 over here. We're left with w over 4, and 8 plus 20, of course, is 28. Now, don't skip ahead. Show your work. Don't be fooled that 28 divided by 4 is 7, because the answer is not going to be 7. Recognize that this is division, and the inverse of dividing is multiplying. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and we'll have 1w here. And 28 times 4, that's 112. When we have h over 9 plus 3 is equal to 2, notice that there's division and adding. Which one do we deal with first? Always deal with the adding and subtracting first. This says plus 3. To undo plus 3, we're going to subtract 3. And 2 minus 3 is not 1. It's negative 1. If you have to use your calculator to do that, do that. But recognize that this is division, and we undo division by multiplying. I'll multiply both sides by 9. 9 divided by 9 is 1. We'll have 1h. Negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. And there's our solution. The last one is definitely the trickiest one. Because we have that fraction, and 1/4 k plus 1. Even though we see a fraction, this fraction does mean dividing, but that fraction is being multiplied by k. And that's what makes this a little tricky. But we don't deal with any of that first. The first thing we deal with is adding or subtracting. And here we have plus 1. To undo the plus 1, I'm going to subtract 1. So I'll subtract 1 from both sides. 1's gone, and I'm left with 1/4 k is equal to 4. Don't try and take any shortcuts with this 1/4 and the 4. Do what you're supposed to. Now, how are we going to deal with that fraction? One thing that you could do is to take that 1/4 and do 1 divided by 4. When you do that, you're going to get 0.25 or 25 hundredths. That's a nice way to go about things, because that 25 hundredths, the 0.25, is being multiplied by k, and we undo multiplying using division. Those two will cancel, and we'll be left with k is equal to 4 divided by 0.25. You should grab your calculator and calculate that. You might be surprised to see that that is equal to 16. And that's the last solution on the front side. If you flip over your worksheet, there's a few more problems there for you to do on your own. Make sure you do them and get this worksheet turned in today.